Oh, I just got back from a little shopping expedition. It is so beautiful out there. Couldn't ask for more in Southern California. Sunny, nice, cool breeze. San Diego, Southern California day. Almost ideal. Well, it is ideal. I rode my scooter. Wasn't just perfect. Wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold. Oh, and there was lots of people out, man. People at the farmer's market. Drove past that. Oh, you could see I put on my khakis today. So now you can see that I own more than like 6 pairs of ripped up jeans. And I even put on my Doc Martens, see? You see them? Yeah. I put on my brown Doc Martens. Yeah, Doc Martens used to be hip. Yeah, they kind of are. Yeah, so I went on a little shopping expedition, and I picked up some rolling tobacco, Bali Shag, one of the better brands. It's actually imported from Denmark, yeah. And some Trader Joe's Bay Blend coffee, whole bean. During the period where I was unemployed, not a long period, I somehow felt I could make it through as long as I had tobacco and coffee. Silly, huh? You know, a while ago I told you that I lost all my writing on these old floppy disks that I should have transferred before they were lost. But anyway, it's kind of sucked. I mean, I used to spend time writing short stories and poems, but I did happen to find one, and maybe there's more out there. But I know that there was if you're a member of Macintoshes, of Apple's, they used to call it Mac.com. Now it's me.com, and you can have some online storage. And I found some writing on there. I wish I would have stored all of it there, but I stored one of my poems. And I thought I might share that with you. It's not exactly appropriate for a sunny California day. But, yeah, and I wrote this, a long time ago. I was in my mid-20s. And I was obsessed over this woman, Christina. And she's the one that we met in photography class, and she kind of insisted on being in my life. I was really shy back then. Didn't really want. I'm still shy. I'm really, really shy in public, in the real, and she kind of just worked her way into my life. I guess she was a busybody. I was living alone in a studio apartment, and she sort of insisted. She didn't like the fact that I spent so much time by myself. But I've always been a loner, pretty much. Not a social butterfly, an introvert, and I'm okay with that. In fact, like the Bukowski line, "Do you hate people? No, I only feel better when they're not around." But anyway, Christina was she's the one that got me to go to karaoke when before anybody hardly even knew about karaoke, except the Japanese. With her, I got to check out all the dive bars in the San Diego area, all the cool ones. Had drinks many times with her at the Alibi, which is a great name for a bar, don't you think? And so after a while, I just developed this enormous crush on her. The funny thing was, though, her boyfriend lived in San Francisco, and I was just convinced, oh, these long distance relationships won't work. You know, those two will eventually break up, and I'll be there. Well, of course, it never really worked out that way, and that's a long story. But why am I telling you all this? But yeah, man, I was obsessed, and boy, she loved to drink. And when we'd get a bunch of drinks in us, I mean, she would become affectionate. We never had what you would call sex, but I was just, oh, I got mixed signals from her so much when we had drinks, you know, and it was much different than when we were sober. But we hung out a lot when we were sober too. Like I said, we took photography together, and where I ended up moving, where I live now, long story on that, is because of her. Anyway, she calls me every now and then, once in a blue moon. But when she moved to San Francisco to get married, yeah, she ended up marrying that guy. And then he cheated on her and they split up, but she stayed in San Francisco. And attractive woman, and she, from what I hear, she married well when she remarried. So anyway, God, I don't know why I was just thinking about that so much. Maybe because the way the day was today. Anyway, no, it's because I found this poem. That's why. All right, enough of that. It's called Gothic Love Poem. Gothic Love Poem. That's why I said it's gothic, which doesn't really fit with this sunny day. Held in rapture by a glimpse of alabaster thigh, I stand outside your garden, transfixed by your vampire eyes. Never your humble servant, as you know quite well, for I wait for the hour when you bend to my will. And oh yes, I will tie your shoe, a sign of tribute, an act of servitude. But for now the moments, you let me bask in your chill, leave me wanting, longing, and still. Oscar Wilde once said that poems written by people in love are the worst poems ever. All right. Hey, I got smart and I put I made my tea ahead of time. I've been keeping tea in a thermal flask. Yeah. Thermos is a brand name. Yeah, so it's nice and hot. Got my I want to call it cream, but it's not. 2 spoons of sugar. Stir it for ages. Time to don the fez. Because the image is reversed, it throws me off. Greetings, fellow citizens. This is Citizen Kong, and welcome to another Fez Night. Tonight's Fez Night should be called That Fez. Cheers. Oh, hot. Try not to slurp it. All right, I wanted to say a couple things. I wanted to thank my YouTube friends, and I've got many YouTube friends. People that are kind enough to watch Fez Night and leave comments all the time. But there's a particular group of friends that support me, and I support them in these silly YouTube wars, the little fights in the channels. And I know it's childish, but you get drawn in, and you actually start to care. And the opposition feels the same way, or else they just go away, you know? It's a distraction. It can be a very amusing distraction, and also very emotional. But that's more on the opposition. So I want to say hello to Eileen, Scott, and Monk and Stan, and for right now, those are the ones that come to mind as far as have been offered great support, and I support them in these little things that we do. And yeah. So cheers. Here's to you. And also there's just been some great stuff that's come out of it that just made me laugh. Oh, excuse me. I got a little something on my lip there. And about this rot contest, I'll have to say I have mixed feelings running against a friend. I consider Angie a friend. And I definitely have mixed feelings. I would have felt better running against somebody that I didn't know or somebody that I didn't like. And speaking of which, I saw Pops was having one of his FOMAs over on that rock video. Apparently he would be very, very upset if I won. I mean, he had one of his typical FOMAs. He wrote like a paragraph. And I say, Pops, if it's going to upset you so much, why didn't you enter the contest? Eh? Eh? That would have made things much more interesting. It really would have. Yeah. So, yeah, and I told Angie, she's a little bit, you know, like there's so many, the comments, especially from her fan base about, you know, boobs and cleavage, you know, and how she's better to look at than me, Citizen Kong. And of course she's better to look at. Hell, if she had entered the contest before me, I wouldn't have entered at all. You know, I don't want to have to compete against her. So, and she's, you know, she thought, well, don't I have more to offer than just her looks, or basically her cleavage? And I said, sure, you know, but you have to change your fan base. Men are pigs. Yes, we are. Okay, so, yeah, I addressed the Roth thing. Yeah, even Tom Kennedy was over there. Oh, it's much better to look at Angie than it is a dweeb in a fez. You know, another funny thing he said was, I look like Woody Allen, but I'm not funny. I do enjoy the comparisons to Woody Allen. I don't mind saying that I look like that. I used to get the Elvis Costello thing, too. Before I grew these whiskers, and both the glasses and short hair, I would sort of look like Elvis Costello. Boy, you've seen him lately, though. Boy, he's gotten fat. He's a big man now. And what else? Yeah, Real Man didn't like the last Fez Night. It was too short. Oh, brother. And, well, I know I had more to talk about. What is this? Let's see. Well, okay. And there was one thing that was on my mind that I thought I'd share with you. I don't know, when I first heard about this, I think it was on an episode of Bones. And then I looked into it, and I guess there's definitely talk about it. I don't know who came up with this, sociologist or whatever. But it has to do with Western culture. And I'm not sure whether it applies so much to European culture. It might be more of a U.S. and British idea, as far as the notion of when a woman comes of age. In the South, it's been traditionally looked on as lower than it would have in the North. I mean, I guess it was acceptable for a man to marry, you know, for a woman to get married when she was 16, you know, or something like that. And I know in many other countries it's much different. So I would have to say it's more of a Anglo-Western culture. I think Germany, I don't know, attitudes in different parts of the world are much different than they are in the U.S. And I think England is a little bit, or the Britain is a little bit more like the U.S. and less like you know, the Netherlands or something like that. I don't know, you know. I just know that they don't see it as sick and twisted for an older man to be checking out like a 17-year-old or even a 16-year-old in like the Netherlands as they do in the U.S. And since I turned 50, I've been thinking about when I went back to that first job where I just really enjoyed it. I just loved the atmosphere and stuff. Well, one of the things I loved about the atmosphere was I was working, there were women there. You know, at the job I was at for like almost 25 years, the only woman there was the occasional customer, but that was rare. There was a mechanic that used to come by that they used to joke, "Oh, Blakeney, go for it." I let my last name slip out. Pops, to get it right. He says it's Bleakers, you know. No, it's Blakeney. And in fact, I've been watching The Scarlet Pimpernel, the Richard E. Grant version, a television version, which some people say is not a good version because it's not true to the novels. But I just got a kick out of hearing, "Oh, it's Lord Blakeney." And what's wonderful about the character is that he's such a fop in public, and people think little of him, that he's such a fop. And I think people like Jeff and Timmy and Al Brookman assume that I'm a certain way because the way I present myself here on YouTube or present myself in the public. But I'd have to remind you, don't judge a book by its cover. And that's what I get such a kick out of watching The Scarlet Pimpernel, because he's not the way he's not who he appears to be. Percival Blakeney. So anyway, there, that. Say it right. If Boner can insist on being called Boehner, which actually, if you look at Matt Groening, looks like Matt Groening. And I used to joke that Boner was just kidding around, you know, like his family should pronounce it the way it's spelled. But you know what? Actually, my pronunciation would be correct by the way it's spelled, except people assume there's other parts of the English language, other words in the English language that follow the rule that my last name follows. But it's hard to find any examples in English that follows the rule. Matt, the creator of The Simpsons, it looks like Groening, Matt Groening, or but he pronounced it Matt Groening. The O-E is A. So then Boehner does the same thing. So, not that it applies to my name, but it's just an example. I let my name slip out, so I just went ahead with that. People are dropping my docs. Pops is using my name on the internet with his sock accounts. Other people have. So who cares? You know, I'm lucky that I'm single and I live alone, so I'm not bringing anything down on immediate family or anything like that, you know. Where was I? I digressed. Oh, I was talking about age-appropriate relationships. Yeah, since I turned 50 and I was working at that particular company, and I was working with women, alongside women, or women were there, not alongside on the crew or anything, but there were women in the office and women in the shipping department, and they were young. And cute. And I keep forgetting that I'm 50. Oh, yeah. Plus, the woman whose partner's in the business, one of the owners, she's pretty easy on the eyes too. Probably a little more age appropriate for me, even though I keep forgetting I'm 50. In my head, I'm still like 19 or barely 21. So age appropriate. Have any of you heard of this rule? Where and I guess this applies to men. I'm not sure how it applies to other people. Maybe it applies to women too, dating younger men. But for a man, you take your age, divide it by 2, and add 7. So let's say you're 20 years old. It would be age appropriate for you to date, but not according to law, but 17. In my case, 50 divided by 2 is 25, plus 7 is 32. So if I dated a woman younger than 32, then that would be considered not appropriate. Now, I'm okay with that. At my age, women in their early 30s look great to me. And I remember when I was like 21, a woman who was over 30 was kind of like, woo. When I was about 22, I was with a woman who was over 30. And you always just feel like, and and they have an attitude. It's like, oh, I'm here to teach you things, And I did. I did learn a thing or two. And these young guys, it's like, most of them are like, just women over 30 look like gross to them and stuff. Hey, man, you're missing out. So anyway, yeah, a woman that's going to be with a young guy like that tend to be kind of adventurous, you know. So, yeah, 32. Now, for me, I could probably date a woman, depending, you know, if she's fit. Well, anyway, I could date women older than me, yeah, as long as they're fit. What can I say? Men are pigs. I'm superficial that way. But if there's any women that are like 32 or a little older that are still interested, you know, childbearing age, you know, I know women, I know a couple women that had a child right after passing 40, even though the risks are higher then. So I prefer like, you know, between 32 and 35 and want like a house husband or something, or somebody that's, you're earning good money so you don't have to rely on my paycheck. Give me a call. All right, well, that was silly. But anyway, I don't know, I've been thinking about that. My father was 55 when I was born, and I was his second marriage. It was his second marriage. His first wife died, and he had a daughter with that marriage. And by the time he had his second family, his daughter was already practically grown up. I think she was like about 16 or 17 when I was born. And growing up, I thought, oh man, that just sucks having a father that looks like your grandfather. And of course, my mother was much younger than my father. Almost the same rule, practically. She was about 30 when they got married, so she was a little younger. And plus she was a Mexican. Boy, back then, like in Texas or something, I mean, that was considered a mixed marriage. Lucy being married to a Cuban on the I Love Lucy was controversial. It's about keeping the races pure and racial reality. David Duke, that's code word, racial reality for a type of racism. Because sure, there's differences between the races. It's obvious. But when they use it as a tool to talk about voluntary segregation or to actually start pointing out, and this is what happens, is that one race is superior than another. I heard one theory is that the reason why the American Indian didn't develop the wheel is because they were stupid. Which is not correct, because invention, what is it? Yeah, what's that expression? I know necessity is the mother of invention. Is that how it goes? For the American Indian, it wasn't necessary. And in order to develop a wheel, you really need a pack animal. You need an animal that can pull things, a beast of burden. And then otherwise, the wheel's not practical. And someone would say, well, the American Indian had the horses. They didn't have the horses till the Spaniards came, which is a very, relatively short amount of time that they had horses. So that's just ignorance to say that, In Africa, there's no animal that can serve for a beast of burden. Zebras are way too skittish. You can't domesticate them. African elephants are almost impossible to domesticate. But whereas in India and the Middle East, you have donkeys and burros, there were horses in Europe, and the Mongols used horses. There's a book called something like Disease, Iron, and Steel or something. I'm sorry, I'll have to look it up. But it explains a lot of that in a very, very simple language. I think there's a documentary based on that book. And I want to read it someday. My sister read it, and she was telling me stuff about it. And it all has to do about the differences about how different cultures evolved the way they did. But racial realism tends to use that as a way of saying that this culture is superior to that other culture. Anyways, it's just newspeak. It's newspeak for being racist, I say. Any of you disagree with me, give me a good argument, why we need the term racial realism. Or why even talk about it? Well, what's the reason? Yeah, sure. There's medical things like the African Americans tend to get sickle cell anemia, and it's interesting. It's because it's a byproduct of developing a resistance to malaria. That's why Anglos and Europeans weren't exposed to malaria, so they don't get sickle cell anemia. And there's another disease that certain Europeans get because it's because of developing a resistance to tuberculosis. So there are differences between the races when you start looking at medical things. But when you start the whole thing of measuring the cranium to say that an Englishman was superior to an Irishman, like they did it during the turn of the century, that's the same thing as what David Duke is doing. And then the whole Witzke man or Louis Arrighi said, well, I never heard anything that he said that he was against, and because there's a lot of people that don't approve of the state of Israel, and neither does David Duke. But I see his motivation as different. He was a former Grand Wizard of the KKK, never renounced the KKK, never renounced his past views, whereas somebody there was a man on Oprah that was a heavy hardcore skinhead, had all the Nazi tattoos and all that stuff, and they may have based the movie American History X or whatever, that one with Norton, on that character. I'm not sure, but he was a hardcore skinhead. He ended up going to prison, and he had a change of heart. And I think he ended up marrying a Mexican woman. And oh man, and he was on Oprah Winfrey, and he just went over and over again about how wrong he was, and how wrong the skinhead movement was, and how wrong the white supremacist movement was, or is. And he recanted, he denounced it. And I felt that man was sincere. I have not seen any action of that sort taken by David Duke. And as far as the immigration things, sure, I agree with it. But I think his immigration policy is way more strict. I don't believe in putting up a border fence. I think there could be, if unions were stronger, in which the right was really, they're happy to see the unions broken. But if the unions were stronger, that would take away the incentive of illegal aliens. The unions would make sure, the workers would be self-policing. They would make sure there were no illegals. If the meatpacking plants and the garment plants, where they sew clothes, were unionized and strong unions, all those people would have green cards and be legal. It's the businessmen that allow this. Bush, George Bush, that influenced a lot of his policies, was the cheap labor, So I'd have to, that's enough about David Duke. And I don't know how I got on that topic. Typical Fez night. Rambling. Ramble. I might have to go back and look at how I ended up on that tangent. Yeah, I guess I was thinking about comments and stuff. Should I look at the paper and make this longer? One thing that's concerned me is they're talking again about a double dip inflation. They're talking about Obama's chances of re-election if we do have another downturn. Man, I was just starting to feel, I don't want to hear that. I was just starting to feel that things are getting better, And speaking of getting better, I want to get this over with and go outside. It's beautiful. And I have another thing I can go do. Yeah. I'm gonna go possibly go visit one of my coworkers. Yeah. Yeah, it's nothing like that. Yeah, it's one of the things about I had lost all my contacts for procuring certain extraterrestrial substances. And since then, um, meeting a younger crowd, I'm starting to reestablish some of that network, which is good. Or some people might say is bad. Yeah, but anyway, this double dip inflation, oh man, you know. But then again, you see like the strongest contender is Mitt Romney. Darn it, I wish Donald Trump would have stuck to his guns and ran for president. There's still hope. Sarah Palin might run. There's still hope. Still hope for me. Or us on the left. You know, it's funny, one of the new friends I've been making at work is a hell of a nice guy. It's funny to say, I should say hell. He's a heck of a nice guy. But it came out in conversation, he's a Christian. And he's one of those, you know, doesn't believe in evolution. And every now and then he comes spouting off some right-wing idea. But I really like the guy. And kind of got him wound up, though, when I said that Jesus was a liberal, and I pointed out why. And he was dumbfounded. Because the word liberal, especially to people like them, has such a bad connotation. But, you know, do I need to go over it? Here's a guy that preached about helping the poor and taking care of your brother, turning the other cheek, you know, peace. Really, really, really critical of the rich. Very critical, you know. Pretty much all those things, you know, taking care of the earth, taking care of the children, taking care of the people that are lesser, you know, monetary-wise, sick, healing the sick, going out and hanging with the lepers, hanging out with the outcasts, hanging out with prisoners, hanging out with prostitutes, rejecting the establishment, the established Jewish hierarchy that was there, what the Pharisees, you know, a rebel. You know, upsetting the status quo. That's all liberal stuff. Oh man, but the Christian right hate to hear that. It just makes their brain go, does not compute, does not compute. Oh, I really like this guy. And I broke a promise to myself that at my new job I wasn't going to talk politics or religion or any of that stuff. But he started it. I can't help it. We were having a cigarette, and he was talking about like getting some beers or something, and he said, "Yeah, you know." Some of my friends go, "Why do you have a beer and a cigarette when you're a Christian?" You know, and I said, "Oh, you're a Christian, huh?" And I noticed this thing on on his dashboard. I thought that's pretty thick to be an address book. So anyway, no, I hope there's no double dip. You know what? I was thinking, you know, I just wish that, you know, wishes if wishes were horses, that the stock exchange, that the whole monetary banks and all that stuff wasn't treated like a casino. Because the people that are hurt, I mean, things like food and oil, they lay bets on it, on whether it's going to go high or low. And there's people that get rich off the shortages and the suffering, you know, and the rest of us that have to make do without. Those people get rich off that. It has a lot to do with this incentive of making money that causes the shortages to begin with. There has to be a better system. And I'm saying, you know, we still need the incentive for men to invent things, for artists to create, for businessmen to have the ambition to make a product and sell it and create work. I'm not talking about taking all that away, but there's just something about the stock exchange and banks, you know? If the right was smart, they would hate bankers too. Come on. And yet, they're protected. And the oil companies are protected and subsidized. When we should be hating them. There's no, talk about incentives. They don't have no incentive to like look at green energy, you know, and all that crap. They go like, do we care about like taking this oil field and planting some grass on there so some birds and a golf course can be there? People do, you know. That's just stupid. Golf courses are the worst. Talk about a waste of land and water and resources. You know, I'm not a sports person, but at least bowling doesn't use up all that. You know, and if you had like a stadium that's multiple use, that's good. That works, you know. But a golf course only does one thing. And it's sort of an elitist thing, isn't it? Where businessmen get together to swing deals, and lawyers, doctors. Oh, and I want to say something to Trisha Kitty, and I got some bad news about somebody on YouTube, so my thoughts and prayers are with you. Somebody that it's kind of low key, but I've known them for quite a while. And Trisha Kitty, yeah, I hope you feel better. You know, and you're right. I mean, we do need a better healthcare system. And if you were in Canada, you know, you might have got a misdiagnosis or something like that, but you wouldn't. It would be way better than going to an emergency room. I mean, misdiagnosis happens everywhere. And then you hear all these people anecdotes. Oh, I knew a friend in Canada that this, blah, 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 blah. Hey, right here in the United States, a guy got the wrong leg cut off, you know? And sure, we might have the best, like, whoop-de-doo imaging machines and blah, 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 and all that, and, you know, the equipment and the technology, but the rest of us can't afford that, you know? I mean, wouldn't it be nice if you just, like, you know, needed a tooth fixed or had a bone broken or running a high fever or just had something that was treatable? You know, I'm not talking heart transplants or anything like that, but just the regular stuff that most of us, you know, encounter, have a problem with, you know, need a you know, a mole removed that's changed or something like that. Be nice if we could just go and get it taken care of and not be treated like a bum, you know? I'm sure those emergency rooms, that's what they say it's come down to, is that a person gets so sick that they can't get any preventative care. They can't get something so they nip it in the bud. They can't go see a doctor and go, hey, look, you know, this is happening, and the doctor can take care of it so it doesn't get worse. It's got to get so bad that the person has to go to the emergency room. And that's what they see there. Instead of, like, you know, the typical emergency, like some guy hit himself with an axe or something. And the people there that run the emergency rooms must feel like overworked, and, you know, and they must get angry, and they must look down on these clients that have no insurance. It's a terrible situation. I don't know how anybody can defend the system that we have now, you know. The people that usually defend the system that we have now are making plenty of money and have health insurance. And they're relatively healthy, you know. All right, everybody. I've gone on long enough. Have a great week. I'm going to go outside. It's such a wonderful day. Oh, and about, you know, Jeff is making that thing about, you know, all, you know, curled up on the couch, sucking his thumb in the fetal position. Yeah, Jeff, you're a real tough guy. Yeah, I know. You're a former Marine. You know, it's funny, my new boss is a former Marine, and he's a nice person, you know, and it's been very, I'm so happy to be working for him. And I'm glad not all former Marines are like you, as far as that goes. Jeff, I considered you a good friend, but just because that thing got out, then Timmy recorded a private conversation and played it, and where I called you a racist. It's not something that people, I'm not going to recant it, and it's things that other people are not going to deny, you know, or going to agree with me. I'm not going to say, take my words back, you know, I'm not going to be a hypocrite about it. But this racial reality and your whole, the David Duke thing was the last straw. And, you know, and then the insinuating that I'm gay for Monk, and that I live in the gay part of town, and that I'm afraid to go to Ocean Beach. I have no real reason to go to Ocean Beach. I haven't been a beach person since I was 16 or 17. When me with my freckly pale skin, I would try to get a tan, go swimming out past the breakers, you know, try to do that whole California thing, the beach part. But it's not me. I really don't like the ocean. My father was different. My father loved to go deep sea fishing. He loved the whole sand and the ocean and the palm trees. Me, I prefer the mountains and a freshwater lake and streams. I much prefer that. But I ended up in San Diego because my father retired here. I just wanted to point that out to you, you know, that there's that whole, you know, making assumptions. And maybe I'm making assumptions. I withheld judgment for quite a while. But you really clinched it when you told us about that vlog on David Duke. And some people may not think David Duke is a racist, but I do. I do. All right. Yeah, I had to get that off my chest about the whole Ocean Beach thing. I love the part of town where I live. You know? Yeah, I live a few miles away from Hillcrest, which is a notoriously gay part of San Diego. But man, the place is great as far as restaurants. They have the best restaurants. They have great places for getting vintage clothes. It's a really, really interesting part of town, like most places. And Jeff, you know, you're so funny you're talking about that. I thought you were the John Waters fan, the guy that didn't have a problem with any of that, and yet you're using it as a way to bash me, you know? And sure, when I first moved up here, I was a little, you know, uncomfortable with that thing, you know, the way I was brought up. But since then, my interest in the arts and wanting to be an artist, that made me timer because I put some beers in the freezer. I wanted to gravitate towards the bohemian parts of town. Now, where I live, right here, is not considered the gay part of town. It's considered the weirdo part of town. They don't call it Abnormal Heights for nothing. Which I like. I love this part of town. I mean, OB, yeah, you got your like scraggly, burnout homeless kids at the youth hostel, you know, that have sand in their hair, and all these like worn out, aging, hippy dippy types, and guys that are nostalgic for the heyday of their Hell's Angels, you know, identity in that part of town. But really, if you look at the history of San Diego, OB had nothing on Imperial Beach. And I can remember Imperial Beach when the Rathskeller was still there. And it was a notorious biker bar. And that's where it was really happening. That's where the border was. That's where the ingredients for crystal meth was coming across. You know, yeah, OB may have had their bikers, but Imperial Beach is where it was really happening. Not that it's anything to be proud of, but I mean that's OB for you. You've got, you know, it's the scuzzy, the scummy beach town. You know, you've got La Jolla, which is real nice, Del Mar, Coronado. You know, Imperial Beach and OB are the scummy beach areas. You know, Imperial Beach in a way more scummy because they get those sewage spills sometimes. But Timmy goes on and on and on how great OB is. Yeah, sure, it's all right. I used to have friends. We'd go hang out at the on Newport, and there was a couple bars that we liked to frequent there. You know, change of pace. You know, because there's plenty to do here. The only reason I would have to go to Ocean Beach anymore, but I can't afford it right now, is I want to go to the co-op there that's got the hippy dippy grunt, the crunchies working there. You know, where you can get organic fruits and all the cool stuff and health food and all the bitchin' stuff, you know. And, you know, you can get lunch there and get some, like, you know, tofu, casserole or whatever, you know. My ex-girlfriend loved to go there. I'd go there with her. But I'd go back there on my own. So that's it about Ocean Beach. I have no real reason for it. Do you want people? Do you want me to go make another video on Ocean Beach? I'll do it, you know. I don't see the incentive. I'll go to the People's Market, that's the co-op, and maybe see if I can shoot a little footage around there. That might be fun. You know, sure as hell Timmy doesn't go there. The friggin', yeah, probably hates those people. He's such a meanie. He's a terrible person. All right, everybody, I should really go now. Hey, real man, you got your long fez. Okay, everybody, have a great week. Cheers.